Hi, this is Katie here with the podcast, The Art of Adaptation, in which I'll be interviewing members of the CrossFit Bethesda family and community. We're talking with my guests about how they are adapting their lives, their businesses, and their families in innovative and responsive ways to the changes that they are facing. This will be the second episode. I've got with me here Nancy Ladd. She's a longtime CrossFit Bethesda member, a parent of two, and a Unitarian minister at the River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. She's here to talk about some of the challenges she's been facing with the transitions as a parent, including the homeschooling of her children, and then all the transitions taking her huge congregation into an online church for the time being. So, hi Nancy, thanks for joining me today.
Hi Katie.
To get started, I'm curious about the things that you've been doing with the church and your family. I want to start with your family in the church because I just want to figure out the timeline. So what happened first? Did you take the church online or did the schools close first?
We took the church online first. And that happened partly because, if you recall back, the very first COVID case in the district was at an Episcopal church. And the first patient zero in this region, if you will, was the Episcopal parish priest who came back from a conference and had Sunday services. So I was sure as hell not going to gather 400 people in a room and be the next headline. So
Oh, you froze up on me. There she is. Oh, you froze up for a second. Can you just repeat the last part?
Yes. So it was a week and a half before schools closed. We had a kind of all hands on deck staff meeting, and we have maybe 15 staff members at our congregation, and went through every aspect of congregational life and ministry, and just made decisions. And we came out of that meeting with the whole staff nicknaming me the platoon commander, because I just took in the information, made decisions. We had an hour and a half to figure out how church was going to go off online, and we did it. And then I was like high functioning platoon commander, decision maker person until the day before schools closed. And I remember being on the phone with one of my colleagues and saying, yes, I know I've been holding it all so far, but schools are going to close tomorrow, and that's when it's going to get real. And that's when the priorities all change.
Yes. So then the schools closed. Did they, I know it hasn't been a long, we were talking about this before we started filming, but it seems like it started yesterday, and it also seems like we've been in this for forever. So my timing gets a little off. Did the Montgomery County schools close before spring break, or did they close when spring break started?
Before spring break. Technically, Montgomery County schools are on spring break right now, although it's only 3 days long. It's yesterday, today, and Monday. Yeah, so we've been at it, I guess, 3 weeks and change.
Okay. And then, so what has that been like? So you've been at the online homeschooling for 3 weeks?
Yeah, an online church for a month or so.
Yeah. So with the as a parent, then you've got two kids. They are 6 and 11, a 6-year-old boy and an 11-year-old girl. And now for the last 3 weeks, you and your husband have been responsible for schooling them. And how are you getting curriculum from the schools? Are you guys on your own, or tell us about it?
So in the beginning, and I'm sure this is different for a lot of schools, especially folks who have kids in private schools, but in the beginning, we had essentially nothing. Like, the kids came home with some worksheets in a folder. And especially Josiah, who's my little one, he tore through those worksheets in 2 days. So we were like, we have nothing. And they're also in very divergent places, which I know a lot of us in our community have kids of different ages. So they have very different emotional needs and completely different academic needs. So the first 2 weeks, really, we were on our own. And what felt important to me and to my husband was to create enough structure that it just felt emotionally safe. Because I actually find, especially for my daughter, who's 11, who's about to go into middle school, structure would have stressed her out so much that
Mhm.
it would have been a form of unkindness, I think.
Mhm.
Like, we downloaded stuff off the internet and I just made up 100 sight words for my 6-year-old and assigned that was happening from 9 to 10. And my husband started teaching algebra from 10 to 11 with the big kid. And we just got into it really quick.
Okay. Wow. And then since that, now they've come out with the content. They've started providing you content for both of them?
Yeah. Online content for both of them. For him, for the little one, it's about 2 hours a day. For her, it's like 3 hours a day, but she can fret and worry and want to get an A+ and make it as much time as she wants. Bless her heart.
That's great. And then, so how is it with teaching them both? I'm assuming, is your husband at home too right now, or is he at?
He's at home. He's a professor at Georgetown. So his teaching is, of course, all online as well. And he's 100% in the game, but the idea of working 2 full-time jobs and really keeping up, not just with the educational aspects, but the emotional support of 2 kids, I think it's too much for any of us to ask of ourselves. So if there's one thing that feels really important, and I've actually been preaching this to my congregation, it's that I think people curate their forward-facing selves all the time to make it appear like we are capable of doing everything. Not. And we have to forgive ourselves for the fact that working, 50 hours plus, which is what I did for this, and supporting my kids in the way they need to be supported, I actually can't do it all. So I told everyone in my office that I have from 1 to 2 and from 3 to 5:30 to do Zoom meetings every day. That's all I have. Because if I don't meet those boundaries, then I can't create an environment that's emotionally healthy for my kids. And my colleagues, bless them, are really coming along with me in that. But it's a surprise because I'm a very available supervisor for my staff team generally. And that's not the case now.
Yeah, that's difficult. How are your kids enjoying it? Are they enjoying the homeschooling and all the time at home, or are they not liking it? What's their response?
Josiah loves it. He's 6. He says he wants to go to mommy school forever. He never wants to go back. That I am in a similar place. I very much prefer at some point to not have him hanging on my ankles. Ruth she's a little older, and I think it's hard because by that age you have goals, you have your own sense of like what it is you want to be doing, what you could be doing, and no matter how much we put effort into it, this is not what she planned for herself.
Right.
And I am sure that's absolutely true for parents of teenagers too. That our teenagers are in turns lazy as hell and also stressed as hell because they don't have the kind of agency that they want to have to feel like they have power in the world. But at the same time, it's really hard to get motivated.
Yeah. Well, good job. Keep at it. Hopefully it won't forever. Did Montgomery County close for the rest of the school year for sure?
Not yet, but we're getting all the indications that seems to be where we're headed. And we got the final word from my daughter's swim team that they are canceled for the rest of the season. So we have been working out together. I told Yav that he and Pretzel especially are like celebrities in my house.
Oh.
Whenever Yav and Pretzel are on the TV, my kids are like talking back to them. It's a whole thing.
Oh, that's great. All right. I'll try to make sure Pretzel comes in more. I'll be leading the workouts this weekend, so I'll see to it Pretzel's there. And if you don't do them this weekend, then you can always do them after.
Oh, we'll do it. We've got to see Pretzel.
Trying to make a few more videos with him too. I have the little videos. I just haven't had the time to put them together.
Well, you have, an adoring fan base out apparently.
So with our YouTube channel, we're telling people to subscribe so that we can switch our platform just to YouTube. And I got a couple of emails when I sent out like one to a different mailing list. I got a couple emails back that said I'm only subscribing for the Pretzel videos.
It's humbling.
Whatever works. Anyway, so that's the stuff at home, which is just really interesting to me. I don't have any children yet, and it's just really interesting to hear about what the challenges are like, because I think that they're very unique for everyone. And I think that hearing about how some other people are dealing with it sometimes just helps to hear that you're not alone, and sometimes it helps to hear ideas. So hopefully people can take something from that.
It's good to know that while I really do think a schedule is what is getting us through, I was telling you earlier, our schedule went to hell today. It was just baking cookies and whining all day. So let us be kind to ourselves.
Let us be kind, yes. So with the church, we'll transition. I want to hear about the church a little bit, the congregation. You made the decision, which was smart, to go online. How's it been? How do you give services online? What's the transition look like? What's the response of people? How's the community doing? What have you experienced?
So the first thing we did, really, in addition to just make all the decisions in one meeting, try to divide out what are the chunks of our mission that we need to be trying to realize in this radically changed world. And of course, there's worship. There's the Sunday service, which is now all online. And we pre-record it and then have a live Zoom watch party so people can type in what they're experiencing, what their joys and sorrows are. And we have this amazing software so that people can sing in their homes, and then it can be spliced together with background piano. And it's like a little mini choir, which is amazing. Wow. But the online worship is actually the easiest part, because it just meant learning tech tools. The much harder part is recreating community structures, and being able to attend to people's crises and spiritual needs as they arise, especially when the folks who are in crisis or who have deep, deep needs are people who aren't particularly technologically savvy. So it was kind of like building a church without walls from the ground up, and then having to educate, especially our seniors, on how to engage with church in this new way, because of course some of our folks have never needed church so much.
Right. So how do you do that as an individual, trying to make it so that people are all in touch with each other? What have you guys come up with?
So we invented, I pulled it out of this
copyright coming soon.
Yes, called the Community Connections Program, and we have our mailing list is 1,200 people or something. It's enormous, and we divided our entire list into groups, geographically clustered as much as possible, of about 15, and assigned a neighborhood captain to each of those individual groups. And the neighborhood captain's whole job is connection. So the neighborhood captains check in with their people, ideally about once a week. They're setting up Zoom calls with their people. And we also have neighborhood captains assigned to each of the senior living facilities that we have clusters of our members and friends in. And then the neighborhood captains report back to me, particularly, and to our other leaders, especially about the various crises and needs that people are in. So they have a resource sheet about who to call with what. Does somebody just want some soup left on their front stoop? Well, email that says soup troop at River Road UU congregation, and you can do that. Are you in an actual existential crisis where we're worried for your well-being? Well, maybe that's a call to Reverend Nancy. So the neighborhood captains, in a way, we've outsourced the in-person connection to this network of dedicated people who create those touch points at least once a week, so your congregation cares. And also the neighborhood captains can get the Zoom link for worship, and for small group ministries, they can be a resource person.
That's cool. That's great. How have how's it been going with, I imagine there's a lot of youth groups and support groups at the church that the congregation offers. They've all gone online as well?
Yeah, we've closed the building. So our youth ministries were the first thing that went properly online. Like that first Sunday, the online service was just like me standing behind the pulpit pretending people were there and somebody recording it. We're getting a lot better. But the youth group was like savvy and up and running from the very first Sunday, and they have had higher attendance because they don't have to get out of bed and drag themselves to church. So, I wonder what's that teaching us about how to do church and how to engage youth ministry in the future. Maybe we've been fooling ourselves into thinking it was reasonable to expect teenagers to get up and come at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Hard to say.
Why would we think that would work? So it's been great. And we even, our youth director has created a small group of youth group alums, like people who went off to college and are now like bounced back into their parents' houses and figure out like who they are in this context.
That's cool. Good for you. That's amazing. So what about, what have you seen with people? What are people, what kind of issues are people dealing with the most, have you seen? What are the biggest challenges? Who are they facing? And what are the biggest challenges that you are seeing in your community?
So our congregation is like, there's two big clusters of our demographics. One is young families, and their greatest need is frankly much like what I was saying before, which is like, forgive yourself for not being everything. They need to hear a message that you don't have to be perfect, and we're finding ways to do that and support that. Interestingly, young families are telling us we do not need more programming, and we actually are delivering online Sunday school, and it's really quite beautiful, but we're doing it in a way that you don't have to log in at a particular time, because honestly, we just can't all do another thing at a specific But the other big chunk of our demographic is senior citizens and elders. And the biggest issue that we see, especially with our seniors, is the incredible emotional and physical cost of loneliness. And it is my experience that loneliness is as much a risk factor in terms of health outcomes as like sedentary lifestyle or even heart disease. Loneliness actually has the capacity to kill, to hurt us. And so that's part of why these neighborhood groups have been so important. And also when we can swoop somebody up early, when they're just acknowledging that they're lonely and left out, and get them connected to, like we have a whole group of people creating craft projects from their houses and sharing that together, or having deep philosophical discussions about Buddhism together. Great, whatever. It almost doesn't matter. The premise is to come together. It matters that you do come together, and that somebody might be loving enough your hand through the technological transition. Have that. And we also see right now, I think sadly, and in a complicated way, folks with a variety of domestic challenges. Little ones, like, I mean, come on, you're cooped up in a house with your significant other for a month, and like you're going to be fighting. And if you're not, you're probably lying. Sometimes people just need a little bit of relational support, and often that comes through me and our pastoral team. But there's also bigger questions about what happens when people's homes aren't safe, which is true for some of my people in a lot of different ways. And we don't have particularly good solutions. There are crisis intervention lines in the county, but it's really hard.
Yeah, it is a challenge. What's neat is what you guys have done with the community and keeping it together. And I think that's the most that we can ask for right now, given all of this uncharted territory, which is hopefully it doesn't last too much longer, but hopefully everybody's just staying healthy. It's great. So I think it's great what you've done with your church. I think that your adaptations to being a homeschooling family are commendable as same as everybody else. And it'll be interesting to see where this all goes. I think that's it. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, except just the more we can draw on the real relationships that we had before this, instead of like we're all do-gooders in my congregational context. We want to change the world. We want to help everybody, right? And we are like we're keeping afloat a community center in Baltimore that's in one of the most systemically underprivileged neighborhoods in the entire city. But we're not doing that out of some like distant charitable instinct of wanting to feel good. We're doing that because we had a relationship with that community center before we all went into our houses, and we will have it after. So the more you can connect with your pre-existing networks and commit to them even more, that way we're living our values. In that the church, it turns out, was never its building. It was all people. And however much of my time I spend like fundraising to keep the building standing, it has never been the point. And that's part of what makes CrossFit important too, is that yes, we're here to be badasses, but we're also here because we want to do that together in a community. And that's why I think we need to invest in the institutions that matter.
Thank you for that. And on that note, 8 a.m. tomorrow. No, that's cool. I think that's really true. And I think it's amazing what you've done and will continue to do. So we'll keep moving, stay healthy, stay strong through this. And feel free to reach out to us, info@crossfitbethesda.com, if you have any questions or anything that we can do for you. And with Nancy, if you know Nancy and her congregation, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk with anyone. And yeah, keep moving, stay healthy, and we will see you online.